Segment 1, the dopamine of maybe ever wonder why women can recall the exact shade of the shirt you wore on your first date 3 years ago while you're struggling to remember what you had for lunch yesterday. It's not just a personality quirk or a case of paying more attention. It is deep seated, hardwired neurological programming. To understand this, you have to look at the anticipation effect. Most people think we get the biggest rush of pleasure when we finally get what we want: the gift, the promotion, or the kiss. But for the female brain, the chemistry works differently. Research shows that a woman's brain often responds with far more intensity to the waiting than to the actual reward itself. The dopamine spike, that feel good chemical that keeps us motivated, hits its peak during the buildup. Whether it's the week spent planning a vacation, the hours spent getting ready for a night out, or even the agonizing minutes waiting for a ping on her phone, the maybe is more powerful than the yes. For them, the journey isn't just a hurdle to get over. The journey is the experience. This explains why a chase or a well planned surprise often carries more emotional weight than the destination itself. If the buildup is flat, the reward feels empty. When you understand this, you realize that the anticipation is the fuel that drives her engagement with the world. Segment 2, the loop of truth. Let's get real about how reality is formed. Women are statistically more susceptible to what psychologists call the illusory truth effect. Before you jump to conclusions, understand that this has absolutely nothing to do with intelligence, logic, or being gullible. It has everything to do with how the brain handles pattern recognition. When a specific narrative, whether it's a standard of beauty, a piece of relationship advice, or even a toxic bit of negative self talk, is repeated over and over, the brain stops questioning it. It starts to categorize that repetition as objective, undeniable fact. This isn't a glitch. It's an evolutionary survival mechanism. Thousands of years ago, being able to quickly pick up on community, wisdom, and social cues meant the difference between belonging and exile. In the modern world, however, this means the stories women hear repeatedly from the media, their social circles, or even a partner literally reshape their internal reality. They aren't just influenced by their environment, they are transformed by it. This loop of truth means that the messages a woman consumes don't just sit on the surface. They embed themselves into the very foundation of how she sees herself and the world around her. Segment 3, the mirror effect. The female brain is a biological masterpiece designed for hyperempathy. This is powered by something called mirror neurons. These are specialized brain cells that fire not just when you perform an action, but when you watch someone else do it. While everyone has them, women possess significantly more active mirror neuron systems. This means that if you are sitting across from her feeling stressed, anxious, or even incredibly excited, she isn't just noticing your mood. Her brain is literally simulating your emotional state within herself. This is what we call emotional contagion. It's the reason women are often the glue in social groups. They can sense a shift in the room before a single word is spoken. But there is a heavy price for this superpower. It's why toxic environments, negative people, or high conflict relationships are uniquely and physically draining for women. They don't have the luxury of just witnessing negativity from a distance. They are neurologically living that negativity right alongside you. Their brains are reflecting your reality back to them in real time, making their emotional environment the single most important factor in their overall well being. Segment 4, the reactance trigger. If you want to make an object, a opportunity, or even a person 10 times more desirable to a woman, simply tell her it's off limits. This isn't just playing hard to get or being contrarian. It is a powerful psychological phenomenon known as psychological reactance. Think of it as a higher defense system for the soul. At its core, reactance is a hardwired response to any perceived threat to personal autonomy or freedom of choice. The moment a woman senses that her options are being narrowed or that someone is trying to control her behavior, her brain triggers an intense motivational state to reclaim that lost ground. That forbidden fruit suddenly glows brighter because it represents her right to choose for herself. To understand why this is so potent, you have to look at the historical context. Because women have traditionally faced more social no's, more restrictions, and more. That's not for you. Throughout history, their internal pushback has become finely tuned and highly amplified. When she feels her freedom is being restricted, her brain doesn't just register a mild annoyance. It shifts into high gear to reassert control. This is a biological drive for self determination. It's not about being difficult or rebellious for the sake of it. It is a fundamental survival mechanism designed to protect her independence. When you understand this, you realize that respect for her boundaries and her freedom isn't just a courtesy. It's the only way to communicate without triggering this deep seated defensive wall. Segment 5: The Emotional Hard Drive. It's time to settle the tired debate about why women hold on to things or bring up the past. What many people mistake for a grudge is actually a highly sophisticated biological process called emotional memory encoding. The female brain is uniquely efficient at tagging emotionally charged events with powerful neurochemical markers. While a neutral event like what you ate for breakfast on a Tuesday gets filed away in the temporary folder and eventually deleted, anything wrapped in a strong emotion like joy, fear, or hurt gets saved to the permanent hard drive. This means that a specific argument from 2 years ago or a thoughtless comment made months back isn't being held onto out of spite. It is stored with photographic clarity because in that moment, her brain flagged it as vital information. This wasn't an accident of nature. It was a massive evolutionary advantage for ancestral women. The ability to navigate complex social hierarchies and remember exactly who was trustworthy or who posed a threat was essential for the survival of the community and her children. In modern relationships, this manifests as a Heidi record of every meaningful interaction. She isn't refusing to let go or trying to be stuck in the past. Her biology is simply keeping a record of things that moved her. When something carries emotional weight, her brain literally builds a stronger, more durable physical bridge to that memory. Understanding this changes the conversation. She isn't trying to win an argument. She is simply navigating the world with a much more detailed map than you might be using. Segment 6: The Myth of Multitasking. We have all heard the cultural myth that women are natural multitaskers, born with the ability to juggle a career, a household, and a social life all at the same second. However, the scientific truth is far more sobering. True multitasking, the ability to process two complex streams of information at once, is a neurological impossibility for the human brain, regardless of gender. What women actually excel at isn't doing two things at once. It is rapid task switching. The female brain is often more adept at pivoting from one demand to another with incredible speed and relative smoothness. She can jump from a professional email to a child's question to a dinner plan in a matter of seconds, making it look like it's all happening simultaneously. But here's the catch that no one talks about. Every single one of those switches comes with a heavy cognitive tax. Every time the brain pivots, it has to disengage from one rule set and load up another, which drains mental energy and increases overall fatigue. Just because her brain is efficient at switching doesn't mean it's free. The societal expectation that women should be able to do it all at the same time isn't just a heavy social burden. It is a total rejection of how the human brain actually functions. When we praise multitasking, we are often just praising a high-speed burn of mental fuel that eventually leads to exhaustion. Recognizing this allows for a shift in perspective. It's not about doing more at once, but about respecting the immense energy it takes to manage a world that never stops asking for a switch. Segment 7: The Foot in the Door Strategy. In the world of persuasion and social dynamics, strategy is everything, and the foot in the door technique is one of the most effective tools for understanding female psychology. This isn't about manipulation, it's about a deep seated biological and social drive for consistency. From a young age, many women are socialized to prioritize cooperation, helpfulness, and the maintenance of social harmony. When someone asks for a small, almost effortless favor, something so minor it feels impossible to say no to, it sets off a psychological chain reaction. By agreeing to that tiny request, a woman isn't just performing a task. She is unconsciously establishing a new internal identity. She begins to see herself as a person who is helpful or someone who supports this cause. Once that helpful identity is locked in, the stakes change. When a much larger, more demanding request follows later on, the brain feels a powerful internal pressure to stay consistent with that established self image. To say no to the second request would create a sense of internal friction known as cognitive dissonance because it would contradict the helpful persona she just demonstrated. This drive for social consistency is a massive force in human behavior. By understanding this, women can become more aware of why they feel obligated to keep saying yes, empowering them to set firmer boundaries. For everyone else, it's a lesson in how small positive interactions lay the groundwork for long term trust and cooperation. Segment 8: the safety of the gaze nonverbal communication is a silent language, and for women, it is dominated by the power of eye contact. When a woman engages in meaningful study eye contact, it triggers the release of oxytocin in her brain, often called the bonding hormone. This chemical signal is what creates that warm sense of connection, trust, and emotional resonance. It's a biological green light that says, I see you, I value you, and I am present with you. Because women are generally more attuned to subtle social cues. Eye contact is the primary tool they use to gauge the sincerity and safety of an interaction. It is the fastest way to build an authentic bridge between two people. However, you must understand that the line between a gaze that feels intimate and one that feels predatory is razor thin and entirely dependent on context. While the right amount of eye contact builds a bond, an intense, unblinking, or poorly timed stare can immediately trigger a threat response. Women are hypersensitive to these distinctions. They can instantly feel the difference between a gaze that respects their autonomy and one that seeks to dominate the interaction. The same look that feels like a deep soul Lee connection in a quiet, safe setting can feel like an invasive threat in a crowded or unfamiliar environment. In female psychology, the eyes don't just see, they assess safety, intent, and value in a split second. Segment 9: the sunk cost trap. The sunk cost fallacy is a psychological trap that hits women with particular intensity, especially when it comes to their emotional lives. It is the illogical belief that we should continue a failing behavior because we've already paid for it with our past efforts. Once a woman has poured her time, her energy, and her heart into a relationship, a career path, or a long term project, her psychology creates a powerful, almost magnetic pull to keep investing, even when the situation has clearly turned toxic or dead end. The brain starts telling a dangerous story. I can't leave now. I've already put 5 years into this. Or if I walk away, all that emotional work was for nothing. This feeling of wasted investment is what keeps people stuck in cycles that no longer serve them. In female psychology, the weight of emotional investment is often heavier because of the value placed on connection and loyalty. Walking away can feel like admitting failure or losing a piece of oneself. But the true breakthrough occurs the moment she realizes that sunk costs are exactly that: sunk. They're gone and cannot be recovered by Stern. The only thing that truly matters is the decision she makes for her future self starting right now. Recognizing this trap allows a woman to stop looking at what she's lost and start looking at the freedom she stands to gain by letting go of a broken investment. Segment 10: the ultimate truth. If you take away nothing else from this entire deep dive, let this one concept burn into your mind. Emotions are the only permanent currency in human interaction, especially within female psychology. We often place a massive amount of weight on our logic, our perfectly crafted arguments, or the specific sequence of events in a day. We think that if we can just explain our side well enough, or if the facts are on our side, that's what will stick. But the biological reality is that a woman might forget the exact words you spoke. She might lose the thread of your logic, and she might even forget the specifics, actions you took. However, she will never, ever forget how you made her feel in those moments. That emotional imprint is the only part of the experience that has a permanent home in her brain. This happens because emotional resonance is the primary filter for what gets encoded into the long term memory banks. While the analytical parts of the brain are busy processing data, the emotional center, the limbic system, is deciding whether or not this moment is worth keeping. When a moment is charged with genuine care, safety, or respect, it creates a high neurological bookmark. Conversely, a flash of thoughtlessness, a dismissive tone, or a breach of trust creates an equally sharp, painful marker. The feeling doesn't just accompany the memory. For the female brain, the feeling becomes the memory. It is the lens through which every single future interaction is viewed. Understanding this truth changes the entire game of communication and connection. It means that you cannot logic your way out of an emotional wound, and you cannot replace a lack of presence with expensive gifts or grand gestures. If the underlying emotional frequency is off, the brain registers a system error. But when you prioritize the emotional experience, making sure she feels heard, secure, and valued, you are building a foundation of loyalty and trust that is physically wired into her biology. This memory of how it felt dictates the level of intimacy, the ease of future conversations, and the strength of the bond. In the end, the facts fade, but the feeling remains as a permanent roadmap for the relationship.